What does it mean for something to be? Ancient and modern thinkers answer that question in very different ways. Today, we'll pit Aristotle's classical metaphysics against the bold contemporary alternative in our ontology, and see what each framework explains about nature, mind, and the cosmos. Start with Aristotle. His basic picture is intuitively familiar. Take a clay pot. It's made of clay, shaped by a potter into a particular form. Aristotle calls this pairing hylomorphism, matter plus form. Things are substances, relatively enduring entities with an identity. To explain why anything is the way it is, Aristotle gives us four causes: the material cause, what it's made of; the formal cause, its shape or essence; the efficient cause, what brings it into being; and the final cause, its purpose or telos. Think of an atom. Its material is nut and tissue. Its form is awkwardness. The efficient cause might be growth and sunlight. And the final cause is its mature potential, the oak tree it tends to become. For Aristotle, teleology, directedness toward fulfillment, is baked into nature. Potentiality becomes actuality through an intrinsic aim. Now jump to I/O. Instead of starting with enduring substances or between purposes, I/O begins with a minimal generative unit called an inner instinct, or IOI. An IOI isn't a particle or a form. It's a pre-categorical Proto event, poised between inward coherence and outward differentiation. When IOIs interact, they do so directionally, inward vs outward, and those interactions are called inner entanglement, or IOE. Imagine an ocean before waves form. IOIs are the series of latent tendencies. IOE are the waves that organize into patterns. The central claim of IO is radical but simple. Space, time, structure, even mind arise from ongoing directional interactions rather than from fixed essences. Let's unpack the practical differences with a few plain examples. Aristotle explains biological development with teleology. An embryo isn't just a random bundle of material. It is already directed toward the organism it will become. IO reframes that directedness as emergent. Developmental trajectories arise when local IOIs lock into stable inward-outward patterns. So both accounts account for direction and emergence. Aristotle by intrinsic ends, IO by relational dynamics that generate apparent ends. What about causation? Aristotle's fourfold schema gives a robust explanatory toolkit for everyday causation. IO dissolves the neat fourfold separation into directional balances, inward positive negative and outward positive negative, and models transitions as a kind of balance matrix. In other words, material tendency is inward potential, formal pattern is stable outward articulation, efficient causes is dynamic IOE interactions, final cause is emergent balance orientation. IO doesn't deny the explanatory utility of Aristotle's categories. It recasts them as pages of directional emergence. Now the philosophical payoff, science. Aristotle's teleology is powerful in biology and ethics. It reads purpose into living processes in a way that often feels explanatory, but it struggles with modern physics. How do fixed essences sit alongside quantum superposition and entanglement? IO is designed to do that work. Because IO's primitives are relational and pre-spatio-temporal, phenomena like non-local entanglement become natural. Locality itself is a later effect of IOE stabilizing into geometry. Gravity, consciousness, and even social structures are seen as layered outcomes of the same in-out grammar. That brings us to Aristogenisis, the idea of teleological ascent toward excellence. Aristotle treats final causes as intrinsic tendencies toward good or full realization. IO can observe that intuition, but it interprets Aristogenesis as an Arnold page, a pattern of repeated Bayes transitions, where systems repeatedly actualize potential in ways that expand coherence. So what Aristotle reads as an intrinsic aim, IO reads as a robust emergent tendency produced by many interacting IOIs. The result is a similar-looking teleology, grounded differently, not in immutable essences, but in recurring directional dynamics. Aristotle gives us conceptual clarity about purposes, ethics, and organismal development, a vocabulary still useful today. IO offers a bridge between the vocabulary and contemporary physics, providing an explicit mechanism for emergence that accommodates non-locality and the quantum to local transition. But IO's cost is formal work. It needs algebraic and tensor formulations to convert its metaphors into testable models. Aristotle's framework, in comparison, is already thoroughly integrated into centuries of philosophical thinking. IO is younger and more speculative, though promising for interdisciplinary synthesis. Aristotle anchors identity in enduring substances and intrinsic ends. IO replaces substance primacy with process primacy. Identity is a persistent pattern of relational entanglement. Aristotle's built-in purposes explain worldly order. IO explains purpose as stable emergent rhythms of inner dynamics that act like purposes without requiring metaphysical essences. Before we wrap up, imagine a final, everyday image to hold this together. Think of a city square at dawn. Aristotle would map the square in terms of existing structures, buildings with functions, people enacting meanings. IO would look at the same square and watch how flows of movement, conversation, and commerce self-organize. Lanes open, markets appear, rhythms stabilize. The city's purpose is visible either way. The difference is whether you read that purpose as engraved into its bricks or as the emergent music of many moving parts. IO says both readings are useful, but the music explains how the purpose appears. Imagine living more than 2,000 years ago, long before telescopes, atoms, or even the concept of science as we know it. Yet, one man, Aristotle, was already asking the same question we still ask today. What is reality made of, and what does it exist the way it does? Aristotle, often called the father of Western philosophy, wrote a collection of ideas that later became known as metaphysics, literally the book that comes after physics. But what he meant wasn't something mystical. He wanted to find the first principles, the most basic truths about existence itself. Unlike his teacher Plato, who believed that ultimate reality exists in some perfect, invisible world of forms, Aristotle brought philosophy down to earth. He said, "Look around you. Reality is right here, in the things we can observe. A tree, a cat, a person, they are all combinations of matter and form, what he called hylomorphism. Matter is what something is made of. Form is what makes it that thing." To explain how and why things change, Aristotle proposed the famous four causes. The mental cause, what it's made of. The formal cause, its design or essence. The efficient cause, what brought it into being. And the final cause, its purpose or goal. For Aristotle, everything in nature has an inner direction, a drive toward fulfillment, what he called teleology. An acorn strives to become an oak. A human strives to understand, to flourish. Even the cosmos, he thought, moved toward perfection. This view, where nature itself has purpose, shaped Christian theology, Renaissance science, and even modern biology. And though today's physics often replaces purpose with equations, the question remains, is the universe truly mechanical, or is it still reaching for something? In modern philosophy of science, Aristotle's ideas echo in the study of emergence, potentiality, and functional organization. When we talk about how simple practices give rise to complex life, or how consciousness emerges from matter, we are still speaking Aristotle's language. So despite living in ancient Greeks, his metaphysical vision continues to shape how we understand being, change, and purpose, even in the 21st century. What if reality doesn't begin with particles, forces, or even space and time, but with something more fundamental, something before all categories? Inner ontology begins exactly there. It starts not with things, but with IOIs, the most primitive existence that are neither in nor out, but both at once, suspended in a perfect balance. You can think of an IOI like a ripple before it becomes a wave, not yet moving inward or outward, but holding the potential for both. When these IOIs interact, they form what we call inner entanglement. And from these entanglements, everything we know begins to emerge, dimensions, space-time, even consciousness itself. In this view, the universe isn't a machine built from parts. It's a living field of relationships, constantly weaving inward coherence and outward expansion, where traditional physics sees mystery like the wave-particle duality or quantum entanglement. IO sees necessity, the natural outcome of the inner generative balance. Here, there are no fixed essences, no hidden teleological purposes driving things toward a goal. Instead, form and meaning emerge from the resonance between inward and outward tendencies, a dynamic rhythm that stabilizes through inner ratios. This shift offers a new way to bridge the deepest rift in modern science, the divide between quantum mechanics and gravity. I will suggest that gravity isn't a separate force at all, but a manifestation of the global inner field, seeking coherence across scales. It also harmonizes with ideas like relational quantum mechanics and process ontology, where reality is not about what is, but about what becomes through interaction. When we compare this to Aristotle's metaphysics, we can see the arc of philosophical evolution, from a world of fixed substances and purposeful ends to a universe of pure relational emergence, what I.O. called a teleological becoming. Even Aristotle's notion of Aristogenesis, the drive toward excellence, finds a new interpretation here, not as a preset final cause, but as an emergent page in the ongoing inner flow of existence. In this sense, I.O. doesn't reject Aristotle's legacy, it transforms it. It replaces static being with living resonance, and the purpose with generativity. The cosmos then is not built, it's becoming. From the silent balance of eyes, everything, space, time, life, and mind emerges, unfolds, and returns through the rhythm of in and out. Let's step back over 2,000 years to the ancient city of Athens, where a student of Plato named Aristotle was quietly reshaping how humanity would think about reality itself. In his early years, Aristotle followed Plato's idea of perfect, eternal forms, those ideal blueprints existing somewhere beyond the physical world. But as he grew older, He began to question that vision. He looked around and asked, if truth lives in some distant realm, how can we ever touch it? How can a tree, a human, or a plane be real if their true essence lives elsewhere? From that question, Aristotle's metaphysics was born, a system that sought to ground truth not in the heavens but in the world itself, in the very things we can see and touch. He called this new field post-philosophy, the study of being as being, not just this or that particular thing, but what it means to exist at all. He wanted to understand why things change and yet somehow endure. Why a seed becomes a tree without ceasing to be itself. Why a child grows into an adult and still remains the same person. Aristotle's solution was simple yet profound. Everything real is made up of matter and form. This is what he called hylomorphism. From hyl, meaning matter, and morphe, meaning form. To make it easy, think of a bronze statue. The bronze itself is the matter, the raw potential. The form is the shape that turns that bronze into a sculpture of Athena. The statue exists only when both come together. Matter gives its substance. Form gives its identity. Now imagine a living being. The body is matter, and the soul, according to Aristotle, is its form, not a ghost or spirit, but the organizing principle that makes a body alive. The soul, he said, is the first actuality of a natural body, having life potentially in it. In other words, life is what happens when matter and form becomes one in motion. Through this insight, Aristotle solved an ancient puzzle left by the pre-Socratics. Thinkers like Parmenides had denied the possibility of change. Nothing comes from nothing, they said. Aristotle agreed, but turned it around. Change isn't something from nothing. It's potential becoming actual. A seed doesn't pop into existence. It realizes what it already was capable of being. For Aristotle, form lives within things, not outside them, as Plato believed. That's why we can study reality directly. By observing the world, we are observing the very principles that make it what it is. This idea became the foundation of Western thought for centuries. From Aquinas, who merged it with Christian theology, to Kant, who reinterpreted it through categories of understanding. Still, questions remained. Does form define matter, or does matter give form its individuality? Are forms universal or particular to each being? Aristotle left us with both a framework and a mystery. A world where everything is a balance of stability and transformation, where being and becoming are two sides of the same living rhythm. And in that rhythm, from the statue's bronze to the body's soul to the cosmos itself, we begin to glimpse the deeper pulse of existence that later theories like inner ontology would reinterpret as the ongoing dialogue between inward coherence and outward expression. When Aristotle looked at the world, he noticed something everyone else had missed. Every explanation, he said, was incomplete unless it answered four essential questions. He called them the four causes, though in modern terms they are better understood as four kinds of explanations. Let's take a simple example. A wooden table. If we want to understand it fully, Aristotle would ask, first, the material cause. What is it made of? In this case, wood. The raw material that underlies everything else. He compared this to letters that make up a word. Without them, the word couldn't exist. Second, the formal cause. What gives its shape or essence? That's the blueprint, the structure, the idea of tableness. It's what makes this pile of wood a table and not a door or a chair. Aristotle gives the example of music. The ratio of 2 to 1 depends on octave. The pattern itself is the form. Third, the efficient cause. Who or what brings it into being? For the table, that's the carpenter. In the case of a child, it's the parent. The efficient cause is the initiator of change, the one who sets potential into motion. And fourth, the final cause. Why does it exist? What is its purpose? The table's purpose might be told hold-fold. The heart's purpose is to pump blood. For Aristotle, this isn't just human intention. It's the natural direction things take. He would say, nature does nothing in pain. Even teeth, he explained, grow for the sake of chewing, not because they decided to, but because their form serves as a natural function. In this way, the universe itself is intelligently structured, not by a divine designer, but by the logic of purpose embedded in being itself. Now, beneath these causes lies the concept of substance. What Aristotle called ousia, the true being of a thing, he declared without primary substances. It is impossible for any of the other things to exist. In other words, substance is what stands on its own, while qualities, quantities, or relations depend upon it. Think of a tree. Its color, height, and texture all change over time, but the tree itself, as a living unit, persists. That enduring core is its substance, and what gives that substance coherence is its form, the organizing principle that turns matter into a single living whole. This led Aristotle to a deep insight into a change itself. He saw the world as a constant dance between potentiality and actuality. Potentiality is capacity, the power to become, like an acorn containing the potential to become an oak tree. Actuality is realization, the fulfillment of that potential. When the acorn grows, its potential becomes actual. And Aristotle insisted, actuality is primary. It defines what potentiality was always aiming toward. That's why nature appears purposeful, not because it has a human-like intention, but because it unfolds toward its own fulfillment. This is teleology, the doctrine that natural processes occur for the sake of something. Now let's pause and bring this to modern times. At first glance, teleology may sound outdated, a relic of pre-scientific thinking, but in 2025, teleology has quietly returned, not as a mystical philosophy, but as a scientific principle of organization. In synthetic biology, for instance, scientists design cells that self-organize toward maintaining balance or repairing damage, as if they knew what to do. In quantum mechanics, wave functions evolve toward coherent states, a form of internal directionality that echoes Aristotle's idea that nature acts for the sake of its own order. Of course, Aristotle's ideas faced criticism too. Many said teleology sounds too human-centered, as if nature has goals or intentions like we do. Others found his 10 categories of being arbitrary, and his essentialism, believing in fixed essences, too rigid for an evolving world. Yet, even critics admit, Aristotle gave us the first truly complete framework for explanation. He reminded us that reality isn't just about material and motion, but also about form, purpose, and fulfillment. And that insight still echoes today. From modern physics to cognitive science, where thinkers like those behind inner ontology reinterpret Aristotle's causes in dynamic terms, inward coherence as the new final cause, outward differentiation as the new efficient cause. In this way, Aristotle's fourfold logic continues to evolve, no longer static, but rhythmic, generative, and alive within the directional fabric of being itself. Let's now turn from Aristotle's world of enduring substances to a radically new vision. IO, a framework that doesn't simply describe the universe, but shows you how the universe generates itself. In IO, the basic blocks of reality aren't particles or substances. They are called IOIs. Think of them as pre-ontological seeds, not as things, but subtle relational states existing in perfect balance between two directions, inward and outward. You might picture an IOI as a musical note before it's played, a vibration waiting for interaction to bring it into resonance. When IOIs interact or entangle, this process is called inner entanglement. From this entanglement, everything we know, space, time, energy, even consciousness emerges. There are no hidden variables, no underlying substance. Reality itself is a relational field in continuous creation, where entanglement is not a mysterious quantum puzzle, but the very grammar of existence. Now imagine the Big Bang, not as an explosion from a singular point, but as a phase shift in the global IOE field, a sudden differentiation between inward coherence and outward expansion. In this view, gravity isn't a force propelling things together. It's the inward tension of the IOE field maintaining coherence amid outward dispersion. It's as if the universe breathes. Inward tension forming galaxies and stars, outward flow driving cosmic expansion. Even quantum decoherence, the process where superpositions collapse into definite states, isn't seen as the loss of possibility, but as a productive differentiation, the outward actualization of a deeper inward unity. So, rather than randomness or collapse, IO views quantum behavior as the rhythmic unfolding of directional balance, the continuous dialogue between in and out. This same rhythmic structure extends to consciousness itself. In IO, cognition and experience are modeled through a 4x4 valence matrix, mapping how inward models like reflection, empathy, and interaction resonate with outward modes, like perception, expression, and action. Imagine your mind as a resonance field. When you focus inward, coherence builds. When you act outward, differentiation expands. Consciousness in this light is not confined to the brain, but is a relational process of directional resonance, a living rhythm between self and world. Let's now compare Aristotle's metaphysical framework with IO's generative relationalism. Both seek to explain how being becomes, but they begin from very different assumptions. To make this more tangible, Aristotle would say a seed becomes a tree because its form guides its potential toward its final cause, its natural purpose. IO, on the other hand, would say the tree emerges from the resonance pattern of countless IOIs interacting, their inward coherence forming structure, their outward differentiation expressing growth. Where Aristotle saw purpose between two things, IO sees directionality emerging between things. And where Aristotle anchored reality in enduring substances, IO reveals a dynamic field where everything is in flux, a continuous becoming without a static being behind it. So in a way, IO is Aristotle's metaphysics reborn, not as a doctrine of fixed essence, but as a generative rhythm of the cosmos itself. The universe no longer unfolds toward purpose. It is the unfolding. And through this unfolding, matter, mind, and meaning arise together in a single living ontology of relation. Imagine Aristotle is sitting in his Lyceum, explaining that everything happens for a reason. A seed becomes a tree, not by chance, but because it's drawn toward its final purpose, its telos. For Aristotle, this inner drive toward perfection was a kind of between destiny. The seed aims for the oak, the child for the adult, the artist for the masterpiece. But I reimagined this story. In I/O, there is no predetermined end, no teleological bias toward perfection. Instead, reality moves through a generative rhythm, the constant pulsation between inward and outward pages. Inward pages integrate, gather, and unify. Outward pages differentiate, explore, and disperse. What Aristotle saw as final cause is, in I/O, simply an out page, an expression of expansion, not an ultimate goal. And the in page, the return, the reintegration is equally essential. Together, they create the heartbeat of existence, an atheological rhythm, not a directed march. Now think of Aristotle's four causes. The material cause, what something is made of. The formal cause, its structure or pattern. The efficient cause, what brings it about. And the final cause, its purpose. I/O reinterprets these in relational terms. The material cause becomes the IOIs themselves. The IOIs, the raw field of reality before form. The formal cause is no longer a static blueprint. It's the ratio of in to out, the pattern of directional differentiation. The efficient cause is IOE, the entanglement that drives transformation. And the final cause, no longer destiny, is simply emergent asymmetry, the imbalance that allows evolution to continue. In I/O, purpose is not designed. It emerges from relational tension, the same way a melody emerges from vibration, not from an external play. Aristotle also spoke of potentiality and actuality, the movement from what could be to what is. I/O reframes this ancient idea through superposition and entanglement. Before differentiation, IOIs exist in superposition, undivided, indistinct, full of latent directions. When they relate, they entangle, and from that relation act, direction, energy, and form emerge. It's not that potential becomes actual, but that relation creates actuality. Existence is not a transformation of stuff. It's the becoming of relation. And here lies the key philosophical shift. For Aristotle, substance, the stable thing, is the foundation of being. For I/O, process is the foundation. What we call things are simply temporary crystallizations of process. Like standing waves in a flowing current, reality is not made of substances that change. It is made of change that sometimes looks like a substance. So, when we synthesize all of this, we see I/O not as a rejection of Aristotle, but as his evolution. It keeps his sense of structured reality, but removes the hierarchy of purpose. Teleology becomes emergent, not primitive. And the infinite regress of what caused the cause is resolved, because at the base there are no separate causes, only the relational field of IOIs, generating itself through in-out entanglement. I/O in this sense is Aristotle's cosmos turned inside out, not a universe aiming toward perfection, but one endlessly pulsing in and out, generating form, meaning, and consciousness through the rhythm of relation.